In a realm beyond our own lies the thin and fragile fabric of reality, easily penetrated by dark forces. Whether you believe it or not, a malevolent force is rising on the horizon, driven by an insatiable hunger for power and destruction. Today, we dive into the origins of Stephen King's ultimate villain of the Dark Tower series, the Crimson King. He is not only a shapeshifter, but also a manipulator and destroyer of worlds. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Who is the Crimson King? The Crimson King is an evil trans-dimensional entity with a fearsome form of a demonic were-spider. He is also known as Los or Ram Abala and makes his ominous presence felt throughout Stephen King's multiverse. His ultimate goal is to remake the multiverse in his warped image, casting all existence into chaos and destruction. Followers such as Randall Flagg and Atropos serve the Crimson King, whose arch-nemesis is Roland Deschain, the Last Gunslinger. In a catastrophic turn of events, the king killed members of his court, ripped apart his physical body, and descended into madness. However, being a creature of pure terror does not make him invincible. Mortal heroes can challenge and potentially defeat him. As the mastermind behind chaos and decay in the Keystone World and other connected worlds, the Crimson King aims to destroy the Dark Tower, release the force of Discordia, and reshape the universe according to his twisted ideals. Biography of Crimson King. The inspiration behind the character Stephen King likely drew inspiration for the Crimson King from King Crimson's song, The Court of the Crimson King, and J.R.R. Tolkien's Sauron. The King's sigil, the eye, shares symbolic similarities with Sauron's. In an interview with George R.R. Martin, King confirmed that the Crimson King was his version of Sauron. Another influence is the Arthurian legend where the Crimson King parallels Mordred, as he is the son of Arthur Eld and opposes him, akin to Mordred's rebellion against King Arthur. The birth. Crimson King is born from the union of the Crimson Queen, a primordial demon, and King Arthur Eld, a human ruler. He was the offspring of an unwittingly seduced ruler by the Crimson Queen when King Arthur welcomed them to his court. This makes the king a distant cousin to Roland, which is also a descendant of Eld, which is why he often refers to Roland as his cousin. Insomnia. The king first appeared in Stephen King's novel Insomnia, where he is portrayed as a powerful and mysterious figure wielding significant influence by manipulating others to carry out his wicked bidding. He orchestrates a catastrophic event targeting Susan Day, a public figure, to be killed along with her followers. The king enlists his disciple Atropos to coerce and manipulate Ed Deepno into committing the massacre. As the novel progresses, Ralph Roberts and Louis Chase realized the king's true nature as an evil force. Ralph begins experiencing visions of the Dark Tower, the keystone of the multiverse. The king's plan partially succeeds when he drives Deepno to madness, culminating in a plane crash into the Derry Civic Center, killing Susan Day and her followers. However, Ralph and Louis uncovered that the repercussions of this attack have far-reaching consequences, threatening the fate of the entire multiverse. They soon discover that this tragedy is not the end of the king's ambition. His ultimate target is Patrick Danville, a boy prophesied to be pivotal in saving the Dark Tower, by extension, the multiverse. The events unfold in the town of Derry, a unique convergence point between dimensions that the Crimson King exploits to prevent this prophecy. Yet his scheme is thwarted once again. Clotho and Lachesis intervene, saving Patrick and his mom from the villain's clutches. In doing so, they preserve the multiverse from devastation. The Black House. The Crimson King reappears at the conclusion of Stephen King's novel Black House, where readers learn he is the mastermind behind the novel's events. The king sends a demonic entity, Mr. Moonshun, to abduct children with psychic abilities known as Breakers. These Breakers are held captive at the Big Combination, a power plant that exploits their psychic abilities to spread chaos and further the king's ultimate goal, overturning the Dark Tower and reshaping the multiverse according to his desires. When Moonshun kidnaps Tyler Marshall, a remarkably powerful breaker, Jack Sawyer, the story's main protagonist, realizes the boy's potential as a key element in the Crimson King's sinister plan. However, Tyler thwarts the king's scheme by destroying the Big Combination, delivering yet another setback to the king's malevolent ambitions. The King's role in the Dark Tower series. In the Dark Tower series, it is revealed that the Crimson King is the true culprit behind the destruction of the beams that support the Dark Tower, the linchpin of reality and the multiverse. The King has control over the series' main antagonists, Walter O'Deem and Paddock. As the series continues, the sanity of the King gradually deteriorates and his reasoning becomes more and more delirious, being ruled by an obsessive urge to destroy the tower and be the ruler of the chaos he will unleash after the destruction. The Crimson King briefly appears in The Gunslinger Born, where Martin Broadcloak contacts him. They discuss Roland's successful test of manhood, which infuriates the King. After his appearance in The Gunslinger Born, the King does not appear until in the Long Road Home comic, where he meets Roland for the first time. He reveals their shared ancestry and proposes an alliance, asking Roland to join him in destroying all worlds, promising freedom from the people of the Prim. Roland declines and escapes with the help of Shimi, who attacks the King. In The Gunslinger, the King is mentioned by Sylvia Pittston. She says she is carrying a son of the Crimson King and that one of his followers, either Walter, Martin, or Flag, impregnated her with the King's offspring. But this claim was denied later. When Roland confronts Walter, he reveals that King appeared to him in his childhood and probably granted him some powers. Walter never consciously served the King, not until somewhat recently, and he also never met him personally. They communicated solely through visions. Although the King is very rarely mentioned between the first and fifth volumes of The Dark Tower, it later turns out that his influence was quite widespread in the series. He had been using several diverse antagonistic groups such as the Men of Hambry and the warring tribes of Lud without their knowledge of his vicious, luring presence. Even Farson was manipulated by the King and used as a pawn, just like Walter. A giant machine was created by the King known as Antak, or the Big Combination, which was run by children who failed to be breakers. The Big Combination was used for spreading disharmony everywhere in the multiverse for further destructive aims by the King. Finally, in the last books of the series, his plan is shown to the world, which we've been mentioning for quite some time now, to control the Dark Tower after its destruction. He believes he and his minions will live on in their own world even when the end of existence occurs after the tower's destruction. The King leaves no forces behind. He uses the Breakers, captive telepaths, to siphon away the power supporting the beams of the tower. Although Roland and his quartet ruin the King's plan, the King continues to pursue him, and in the process, destroys his own realm and takes his own life. As predicted, he becomes an undead creature and continues to his prime goal, the Dark Tower. Though his power is diminished and he appears aged, the King remains a fearsome figure embodying hell itself in Roland's eye. In Gwendy's final task, it is explicitly mentioned that the Crimson King is dead. However, his ultimate fate remains undetermined because of the series' time loop structure within the Dark Tower. Personality and powers of the King. Speaking of the Crimson King's personality, he is highly intelligent, but gradually he seems to be going insane. He has been focused on one goal: to destroy the multiverse by toppling the Dark Tower. He promises power and prestige to his allies and, in return, demands their absolute loyalty. The King is cruel and even willing to murder anyone, including children, to achieve his goals. He is also paranoid and pretentious. He fully trusts in a prophecy of his downfall, increasing his paranoia daily. Ultimately, he kills himself and becomes an undead creature who is able to retain his mind and powers. In this form, he continues his quest for eternal chaos and rule. The King is in the realm beyond mortal physiology, whereby he can alter reality at his will and bend chaos to his purpose. He has the ability to wield parafrostikinesis, which helps create impenetrable force fields, and his telepathic and mentokinetic abilities aid in having unmatched influence over the minds of others. Since the King is an abstract existence, which makes him capable of breaking all dimensional boundaries, he can very easily create portals and seal entire realities with just a snap of his finger. He can live forever, kill anyone through necromancy, and harness the power of deadlight, a dangerous and eldritch form of energy that possesses the life essence of another inhuman villain known as It. His intellect surpasses that of any human imagination. Thus, he could shapeshift into any creature at will, command the atmosphere with atmokinesis, and unleash dark magic in unimaginable proportions upon the multiverse. Appearance of the Crimson King. The king is a shapeshifter who takes on various forms to instill terror in those who confront him. Susanna Dean describes his appearance as a horned, red-skinned monster resembling Satan. When Ralph Roberts injures the king, he transforms into a handsome blonde man. In the Dark Tower series, his appearance has been portrayed as a creature with spider-like characteristics. Some have even seen him as an older man with white hair and one fang, or a bald man with a large tusk or horn on his head. But his defining feature is his blood-red eyes, which captivate anyone who looks into them. The king's true form is ungraspable to humans, and he often appears and disappears out of view due to his transcending magical powers. He prefers to work behind the scenes, and his sigil, a glaring red eye, is a frequent symbol throughout the series. Marvelous verdict. No one can argue on this, but the Crimson King is the ultimate villain of the multiverse, as his actions have the power to send the entire cosmos into motion. If looked at carefully, Stephen King's Crimson King and his fear of downfall is a commentary regarding the nature of evil, which demonstrates that while it may seem attractive from afar, the power and prestige, however, it is often pitiful when seen up close. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.